Let's Get To presents Go Go Astros, a focus on H-Town hardball.
All right, we're back here on Go Astros. The three-headed monster is back. I've got the clinch hoodie, and I have, again, not eaten chicken because ever since I told Joe Boo that we would do it ourselves, we've gone 2-0 and scored all the runs. How's everybody doing this morning? Andy, you're on location in Aspen, Colorado. How's it going, man?
5 milligrams is a good entry level. 10 milligrams is what they're going to, what?
And Brian coming from his home office in Jersey. How you doing, man?
I'm good.
So we are presented with, I think, probably a better scenario. Andy, I know we talked about it, was win 1 in Boston. You win 2 in Boston. What do you think has been the difference despite whistling and reflective lights?
Well, first of all, I'm not recording if we don't win tonight because I didn't record prior to the last 2 wins. So the fact that you even let me on is a little bit, it's on you, frankly. But let's
Fair.
be positive. It's different. When I was saying that we just needed to get one more win and get back to Houston, that was absolutely desperation talking. And it's amazing how even in a long 7-game series, how quickly the tables can turn. Because for all the world, and I think the three of us probably felt it too, it looked after game 3 that we were just done, not wanting to be there, lazy swings, lazy approach. And a lot of that's magnified through our own filters of emotions of what's going on in the field and how it's affecting our personal lives, right? So you're in a completely different world now. You're up 3-2. You've not only won 2 games to get back into a commanding lead, but you've dominated those 2 wins. You've taken the hottest hitters in baseball in Kiki Hernandez and JD Martinez and a couple of their other guys and basically reduced them to held them hitless for the most part. The top of that lineup hasn't been effective. And I think they're slugging over the last 2 games. Was over 1,000 in the first 3, and over the last 2, it's like 295. That's a good batting average. That's not a good slugging average.
Right.
So it's, we're in a great position. You still have to win that last one. And unfortunately, the issues that we had in games 2 and 3, we're about to have to reface because we don't have the most solid starting pitching lined up for these next 2 games.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. I did want to ask you, Brian. So Strami had made a comment about tipping, and Andy and I had talked offline about where we weren't sure who was tipping. Was it Machete tipping? Was it the pitcher? But it does seem like since those comments came out, they've given up a grand total of 3 runs since that happened. And that's also factoring in a bullpen game, which meant, 6 or 7 pitchers faced. You think there was something to that? And you think the Astros figured it out?
Sure. Why not? I couldn't see them tipping before, and I can't see them not tipping now. But Brent Strom knows a lot more about pitching than I do. And, the results may matter. It's worth noting as a general comment here, we have good evidence now of how good knowing what pitch is coming is worth. And it turns out to be, people have done extensive studies off the data on, which on the trash can bagging. And, the juice isn't worth the squeeze when it comes to the cheating. There's not that much benefit to sign stealing.
I was going to make a comment about the quality of people in Boston and then trash and then banging, but I thought I would keep this a high level show. Brian, I'll stick with you for a second.
My brother-in-law appreciates that.
Good. So we, Andy mentioned we have the same starting situation going forward. Now, Urquidy had not pitched in something like 15 days. So I'm going to assume that part of that was rust. Garcia's a concern only because, he did have not just a rough start in Boston against Boston, but also a rough start against Chicago. Part of me still thinks that his season numbers are what we're going to see, but how short of a leash do you give him tonight? Are we going all in to win tonight?
So you have a rested Jake Odorizzi. And so if he is your guy in the middle, Jake is okay for the first 9 hitters and average for the first 18, and please don't have him go the third time through the lineup. So I could certainly see a scenario where they go, Garcia doesn't have it. They go 2.3 with him. They bring in a reliever, and then Odorizzi comes in for the 4th through the 6th. Be okay. They could also do Christian Javier for those middle innings and get themselves to the back of the game where they have the advantage.
Andy, how about you? How would you see that shaken out? I mean, how much space do you give Garcia? Do you burn Javier, Odorizzi for a possible game 7, or do you keep them, or do you throw them this time?
I mean, if I'm Dusty, the 70s were much better for me than they were in my personal life because I was hanging out with Hank Aaron, going to Studio 54, meeting models. But if I'm Dusty in 2021, especially on October 22nd, Garcia is your starter. They've named him the starter. I think I tell him before the game, this isn't a reflection on you. This is a reflection of the seriousness of this game. Odorizzi is going to start warming up the second you start pitching, because we're not going to get into another situation where he doesn't get a full 30 minutes. And if we end up burning him because we don't need him, oh well. But Garcia, I don't think it's a short leash necessarily, but I think they're going to be pretty happy if they can get him through 4 or 5 innings with giving a minimum amount of runs. He's not a shutout guy at this stage of the season. I mean, he could be. He's done it before. He had a great regular season, and realistically, outside of these 2 playoff appearances, should be in the AL Rookie of the Year conversation. It certainly should be named, what is it, place show, what is 2nd or 3rd probably. And that guy absolutely could show up and pitch that well at home. It's just every time he picks up the ball, it's a new innings record for him personally. And so some of that is coming into play, I think. Nerves come into it, I think. Being at home and not being in Chicago and not being in Boston is certainly going to benefit him. And it should benefit our hitters. The worry, of course, is can he match what we think Nathan Eovaldi is going to be able to do for the Red Sox, and who has a history of doing it in the playoffs?
I would say this too. Like, I would almost go maybe even different. Like, I agree with you. I think Odorizzi starts warming up in the 2nd, and I almost treat Garcia like an opener. I almost say one time through the lineup, and maybe if it's one time through the lineup and we're up 5-0, then maybe he gets another time through the lineup, like kind of how you were saying when we were texting with Fromber at the end of game 4 or game 5, the minute he gets a base runner, when we were getting into that 7th or 8th. Let's talk offense though. All of a sudden they're hitting everybody. What do you account for? They had that mini slump, and then it seems like Boston is kind of done what the Astros have done often this year, where it just disappear. How do you account, Brian, for the offense being back?
They have a bunch of really good hitters, and it's hard to keep them down over a long period of time. And I think sort of what's notable, I mean,
this is about to be the shortest episode of Go-Go Astros. They're really good. All right. Well, there we go.
But I often say that you ask me, they have, you've asked me this throughout the year, right? They've had a slump. What's going to happen? Well, they're really talented. They're probably going to come back. This probably isn't an inflection point in all of their careers. So I never worry too much about the Astros offense because they have the best offense in baseball. Why do they have the best offense in baseball? They have the largest number of good hitters in baseball. They always put the ball in play, which is a big advantage against the Red Sox shaky defense. And they're able to, again, hit the ball hard without sacrificing contact. So I expect them to score 4, 5, 6 runs today because, well, they've scored 4, 5, 6 runs. They've averaged that throughout the playoffs, and they're certainly possible to score more. So, and if they slump today, I expect them to hit well tomorrow.
Andy, you want to piggyback on that, and I want to pick it up with the Eovaldi question. So, Eovaldi, we see what he can do in the playoffs. However, the fact of the matter is he faced the Astros for about 6 innings, and this postseason already, and gave up a total of 7 runs. Do you feel like? If I'm the Red Sox, I think throwing him for that 1 inning to try to close out a game when it wasn't them getting eliminated might have been a mistake. You put 24 pitches on him, and now you're asking him to turn around 3 days later. Do you see this as an opportunity for the Astros to keep jumping on him?
First of all, piggyback on what Brian said. I think part of what you're seeing with the Astros is consistently they have scored 5 or 6 runs in all the playoff games but 1. But I think when you're looking at games 2 and 3, when you are in an 8-0 hole and a 9-2 hole, those swings just become huge. And the only way you're getting back in that game is everybody's trying to hit home runs, and you get kind of outside of your game. And I think that's what you saw. You get to game 4 and game 5, the Astros stayed within themselves with very few exceptions, showed the plate discipline that they've shown for a number of seasons in a row now, and stopped swinging at just horrible pitches and stop giving. They didn't give in to the Red Sox hitters or pitchers. As far as Nate Eovaldi, I'm scared of him. I've been scared of him since 2018. He is a guy that steps up his game in the playoffs, and not just against Houston. He's an okay guy in the regular season, but once he gets to the playoffs, he puts it in a different gear. And you know, I don't think 24 pitches on what should have been your bullpen day is that big a deal. Yeah, they're higher stress pitches. Yeah, you know, they got to him and they hit him and they scored a bunch of runs off of him, and that move backfired on Alex Cora, but he can still come out and pitch 5-6 solid innings and give them a quality start. And I think at this point, that's all Boston can hope for. I don't think they're looking for a shutdown game from him. They like it. I mean, just like we'd like Garcia to shut down the Red Sox for 7 innings. But I think they're going to count on him giving up 3 runs over 5 or 6 innings and hoping that they can get to the softer part of our bullpen before we get to the better part of our bullpen.
Brian, what about you? I mean, how
that's
do you
the game tonight.
How do you feel Eovaldi versus, do you feel like the 24 pitches matters? And do you feel like having seen him now 3 times in one series, does that give the Astros a different advantage over him?
Yeah, I'm less. I'm with Andy that I don't think the 24 pitches on his bullpen day does much. And you know, he's shown before that he's able to recover and come back and pitch out of the bullpen. And we've seen that plenty of times in the playoffs. It hasn't been working this playoffs more broadly, but we've seen that plenty of times. And unfortunately, we saw.
I mean, just ask Dave Roberts and Urias, right? Like that is the same situation.
On the other hand, we all saw the opposite of it in 2019 against the Nationals. I won't speak of that again. You know, so
Cole's still warm.
So he's available to pitch today.
You know what we need to do is we need to
I'd like to know if
he's
available to pitch to all my Yankee fan friends. He's available to pitch today.
Not to go on a tangent, but one of the things that just irritates the crap out of me is this myth that, you know, Cole could have won the World Series if he'd come in. And I just don't buy it, especially when if he hadn't sucked in game 1 or 2, we wouldn't have been there in the first place. He was exactly a 50-50 pitcher in the World Series that year, you guys. He was great in one game and he sucked in another. And if he had just been consistent, we wouldn't have been at game 7.
But if we're not blaming random happenstance on outcomes, we wouldn't be fans. Shut your mouth, Jim. Shut your mouth.
Fair point. Brian, you may continue your thought. I will go back into my corner and drink my coffee.
Yeah. I am always skeptical that players are better in the postseason than they are in the regular season, mostly because there's so many sort of small samples and there's only a handful of players historically who've proven to be significantly better. Nathan Eovaldi is a 3.5 to 4 ERA guy across his career. I think he's 3.75 on this season. So it's not surprising the Astros have gotten to him a little bit. They have a really good offense. So could he shut them down today? Well, we saw it in game 2, and certainly, you know, we could see that. But the more likely outcome is the Astros get 2, 3, 4 runs off them because, well, they're really good hitters.
All right, well, let's go rapid fire then about the results of the ALCS, because we will not be back until Monday. Andy, do you think the Astros close out game 6 tonight?
I think it's going to be a fairly wild contest. I'm not convinced Chris Sale won't be available at some point for Boston. I still think, and you know, call me a fan, call it the thin air, call it the medicinal herb that's available here in Colorado. But I've got Astros in 6, so I've got them winning tonight.
Brian,
close game. The Astros have an advantage in the late innings with their bullpen. And they shut the door, and the offense gets a run or 2 off the Sox bullpen in the 8th.
All right,
yeah,
so go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I will add that the Astros being at home at Minute Maid Park with a very juiced up crowd is going to absolutely be.
Hold on. I was assured by a Boston Globe writer that we're only good because of orbit, cheerleaders, and signs.
Okay,
not
great.
Stolen signs.
We're going to have all those things tonight. So good.
They
We have
count. They matter.
Orbit's going to be there. The shooting stars are going to be there. I'm sure that lady will bring signs. It'll be great.
Hey, the lady with the she has bought a
Oh, yeah,
ticket.
we're gonna have the
this on
Oho.
Twitter. So
We're going to have Lexi, the Oho lady. That's
That's
going
right.
to be good for her. She's on Twitter, so she'd give us a follow.
Yeah.
I also think that, the having Bagwell semi-sober sitting next to Craig Biggio behind home plate's always a good thing.
As long as I guess Nolan Ryan won't be there. So I was about to say, Nolan's
as long as you don't ask Bagwell to hit the playoffs, it's great that he's there.
okay. Then Andy, who is your MVP?
Jordan, and I know other people have had better series throughout games, but Jordan owned that game 5 and absolutely changed the momentum of the series with his performance against Sale. And Sale had let it loose, and he was striking guys out, but he could not get anything past Alvarez. Alvarez had the first 3 RBI in that game, so he won. You remember that stat they used to have? It was a worst stat ever, game-winning RBI. Who cares?
Yeah.
It was a 2-1 game. I hit a double in the second inning. I got a game-winning RBI.
Brian, what about you? Who's your MVP?
I mean, I think it's pretty open because there's no sort of single hitter who seems to be dominating the series. I think Andy's right that Jordan would be the favorite walking into today, but somebody goes 3 for 4 with a home run and a base clearing double today. If that's Cal Tucker or Yuli Gurriel, Jose Altuve, could be any of those guys.
Altuve does like to hit home runs in games where he can eliminate East Coast teams.
Whenever in game 6s of those series where he can eliminate East Coast teams. Before we jump back to the Astros real quick, some more rapid fire. Let's talk NLCS. I don't think the Dodgers actually have it in them to come all the way back. I think that was as much a fluke about anything else. I think the Braves will win it in 6. And then we will all sit in the corner in the fetal position, sucking our thumb at the Astros Braves World Series. Brian, what say you?
I mean, if you're up 3-2, you should win the series. But the last time a team was ahead 3-2 in the National League Championship Series and lost it was last year when the Braves lost to the Dodgers. In fact, they were up 3-1 and lost it. So, I'm definitely not counting the Dodgers out.
Andy?
What's the statistical likelihood of a team coming back 3-1 2 years in a row against the same opponent? I've got to think that it's unlikely. More than that, I think the Dodgers starters are not as dominant as they were. Certainly losing Bauer, I lost his name. The great guy who doesn't pitch. Well, Turner's the big one for me, but they've lost some depth in the starting pitching. They still have excellent starting pitching. Yeah. Losing Justin Turner for not only this series, but the World Series now since he's been replaced. He's a guy who is one of their emotional leaders on that team and has been through the losses, has been through them finally breaking through last year. I think him not being there, their replacement for Justin Turner isn't the same valued guy. I look for the Braves to close it out probably tonight Saturday night at home, but I don't think the Dodgers have the manpower that they had in 2020 or 2019 for that matter, or 2018 for that matter. I just think it's a weaker version of that team due to attrition and injury. So I look for the Braves to find
injury and one guy being a depraved piece of shit.
Well, that's a mental injury in some books, depending on your lawyer, which he doesn't need because he didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. I will point out to Brian though that the Braves did lose that lead, but it was neutral site games and it was weird. They do have to go back to Atlanta for as much as people are really upset about the tomahawk chop, and I get it. I understand. It's a thing. Brian,
welcome to 1997. We were upset about the tomahawk chop then. Florida State used to be good. They do it too. We hated it there too. Nobody likes the tomahawk chop. But I'm going to have to get off Twitter for that series if that's what it ends up being, because I like some of the Braves fans and I just can't watch them get any glee out of winning even a game in that series, because that's going to be it will be 1997 all again. It'll be Walt Weiss, bases loaded, nobody else, making that play again.
Too soon, Andy.
Too soon.
Yeah.
Brian, as we wrap up, we'll go with you first, then Andy. Just some other random things you think we should look for in tonight, game 6, or God forbid if there's a game 7. I honestly don't think there'll be a game 7, but just what do you think we should be looking for at the game tonight?
I mean, biggest uncertainty point for the Astros is like the 3rd through the 5th inning in both games. They won game 4 in large part because Christian Javier was great in those innings and pitched 3 scoreless innings, was able to get out of trouble a couple times after the couple sort of base hits he's in. But that's, to me, the biggest inflection point. The Red Sox have had the advantage early in this series. The Astros had the advantage late, and they do with a better bullpen. It's those middle innings. The best thing is what we saw in game 5, which is that's carried over by the Astros starter. And Fromber did great on that in game 4. And, I'd love to see Luis Garcia do that tonight.
And rested bullpen now says, even if you do have, God forbid, a game 7, those guys can go both games. Now there's no more like, oh, he's not available. Andy, what about you? What are just some things that you're kind of looking for tonight when you're watching?
Fully rested bullpen. How our top 3 hitters being Altuve, Brantley, and Bregman, assuming Dusty doesn't randomly change the lineup now. He hasn't all playoffs long, so let's see how they handle Nate.
Machete batting leadoff confirmed.
Yeah, Jose Siri is now playing second base.
They're going to get Miles Straw back to hit leadoff like they wanted to do in spring training.
He needed to start, and he looks like a leadoff guy.
Yeah.
No, how the guys we pay to hit well, meaning our stars, meaning Bregman, meaning Brantley, meaning Altuve, meaning Correa, how they face Eovaldi and handle Eovaldi. Eovaldi got over in that second game with a lot of stuff that we normally wouldn't swing at, and he does have good swing and miss. That's one of the tools in his bag. But we helped him out a lot, and still he gave up 3 runs. It could have been more. There were a lot of missed opportunities, and maybe that game doesn't blow up the way it did if we get on some of those opportunities early. So I'd like to get on Nate Eovaldi early, and I'll feel good about it. I will be at the St. Pius, St. Thomas football game tonight, hoping I'm not watching a loss in person and following another loss on my phone.
All right, guys. Well,
hold on. Do we need to make between the St. Thomas alum here and the St. Pius alums there? Do we need to put something on that game tonight?
I think we have to, but I have no sense of how either team is playing.
Neither of them are great, but Thomas is probably better this year. And that hurts me to say, but it is at Pius.
You're coming into, what's the name of our stadium again?
Well, it's Parsley Field at Kubiak Stadium.
That's right, Kubiak Stadium.
I see.
Coming on down to the
Battle of North Shepherd is what they're calling it.
Yeah.
But no, I think I am happy to wager, but it's not going to be a lot of heart. So it might be, bragging rights. It could be, if you want something shipped from Houston, I'm happy to send it to you.
I think bragging rights is pretty good this year. Next year, my nephew will be on the St. Thomas team, so we'll increase the stakes next year.
Well, for people outside of Houston, if you want to get what would be endemic of North Shepherd, which is the road between the 2 schools, it would be used car lots and Mexican restaurants. So we'd have to figure out something there.
You can either have a pinto or some pinto beans. Those are your options.
It is where my father recommended I buy used tires.
There you go.
When I got my first car. So
it is gentrifying. So there's only like 2 or 3 of those shops left.
They even closed down the Sears.
They did.
That Sears
down every
right
Sears,
there.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, right there. All right, guys. So again, let's just go through it again. Andy, you think more than likely we're finishing it off tonight in 6?
Yes.
Brian?
Same.
Does your confidence waver if it goes to a God forbid 7, or do you feel like the war of attrition stays going, Andy?
No, I think ultimately we win the series. We should keep hitting. We're at home. We should be able to win 1 of 2 games at home. I mean,
and their starter tomorrow is that Eovaldi is the Rodriguez guy who we do generally hit. What about you, Brian?
Yes, I mean the Astros are a better team, so they should be able to win 1 of 2. Also, each baseball game's kind of a coin flip, so the chances that your coin flip comes up tails twice is 1 in 4. Yeah, 3 and 4 chance for the Astros. I'm picking the Astros.
I'm going to suggest for Sunday or Saturday, Brian, red and white roses and a nice dinner out.
Very good advice. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, go Stros.
Go Stros.
Go Stros.